Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah. Thank you so much, Andy. So I think my role is just to introduce the session, and I have MacDonald with me as our resource person who is going to be leading the conversation around the Global Partnership for Effective Development Cooperation. So just as an introductory note, I think in our pursuit of enabling environment, we have been utilizing different key spaces of influence, which has been very instrumental in terms of us being able to engage with different stakeholders, including government line ministries, private sector, academia, and also even the development partners. And such platform includes the Global Partnership for Effective Development Cooperation, which was officially launched in May 2024 by the Ministry of Finance, Economic Development and Investment Promotion. And our thrust in this session is really to look at the framework of the GPEDC under the fourth round of monitoring that was launched by the government, where us as civil society we were invited to take part in the process as focal points and also as the development actors to give our independent input and views around different aspects of development cooperation. So the session is really going to look at the overview of the GPEDC process itself, but we'll also focus more on the process of the fourth round of monitoring that started in May. Like I said, there were several engagements that we have done so far in collaboration between us as NANGO and the National Association of Youth Organizations. So MacDonald is going to help us just give an overview of the process with a particular focus on how we can participate, the involvement of civil society, and the process itself, how we are gonna, participate and also influence and utilize different opportunities that actually comes with it. So MacDonald, without wasting much of the time, I think it's time for you to come and lead the session and just give us, an overview in terms of our involvement in civil society, participation, and influence. And maybe just to also give a disclaimer to say, as we are doing this process, we are mainly looking at the aspect of civil society, but the whole process does not necessarily pertain civil society alone, but other development partners, even the government itself, they are also doing the parallel process. But for this session, we are really concentrating mainly on our involvement and our participation as civil society. So MacDonald is the Monitoring, Evaluation and Learning Manager for the National Association of Youth Organization. And the National Association of Youth Organization is one of our focal points for the GPEDC process representing civil society. So I'll give you 30 minutes, I think, just to give us an overview, and we have a short discussion afterwards. Thank you.
So I had to stand up because Ernest will keep on speaking. So forgive my voice. I caught that flu from D, so my voice is a bit shaky. Allow me to observe the protocols that have been observed since morning, and also to follow suit in terms of the previous speakers that have spoken before me. I will start with a verse. 1 Peter 2 verse 9 says, "But you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into the wonderful light." I'm here, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and friends, to try and end the day on a very positive note. I'm sure for those of us that were here since morning, you can relate to the conversations around CSO enabling environment, shrinking civic space. We heard a lot about issues of the trust deficit, mutual suspicion, regime change urgent. There are a lot of issues that we raised around accountability, and just how the space for the sector is shrinking. So as Mr. Ernest has alluded to, the current fourth monitoring round of the Global Partnership for Effective Development Cooperation, GPEDC, it provides a lifeline for civil society organizations in Zimbabwe, because as part of the monitoring exercise, one of the key actors is civil society organizations. And the process, it recognizes CSOs or NGOs as full development actors. And this recognition is underpinned by various declarations, commitments, and conventions that governments have agreed in the context of development cooperation, and Zimbabwe is an actual part to that, which is why we are seeing the Ministry of Finance leading this process and coordinating it on behalf of the government. So as I get into the presentation, it's very important for us to appreciate that the challenges that we face with regard to civic space in Zimbabwe are not peculiar to us as Zimbabweans alone. The world over, civic space is becoming a very global challenge, especially in the wake of COVID-19 and other humanitarian crises that have strained financing for development and also the space for non-state actors. According to the World Bank, over 68% of the world lives in contexts that are considered to be closed or repressed, according to the Civic Monitor. And for those of us that are following Zimbabwe, you'd find that we fall under the rank of those countries that are considered to be repressed. So it really means that people are doing wonderful and amazing work, but they're also doing it in very difficult circumstances. So we must also appreciate the current space that we have, regardless of the challenges, and try to leverage on that space. So by way of introduction, the Global Partnership Monitoring, this is a partner country-led exercise to promote collective accountability on the effectiveness of development cooperation. Whilst I'm here, it's very important to highlight that this is a process that is led by a partner country. In this case, Zimbabwe is the partner country. And this process, it is guided by 4 internationally agreed principles for effective development cooperation. These include country ownership, where we are saying that the different actors in development, they must have ownership over how a country prioritizes its development priorities or makes its decisions around aspects and issues of development cooperation. A very good example is to reflect on the NDS-1 and say as civil society, where we are accorded the space and the opportunity to shape the NDS-1, or we woke up one day and we're the new development framework. The second principle is around transparency and accountability, where we are saying that as development actors, they must be mutual transparency and accountability through the work that we do. For you, the organization that is receiving the money, for the government that is utilizing the money that it receives from development partners for the purposes of championing development. Then the third one, it's a focus on results, to say that from whatever development cooperation, whether it is South-to-South cooperation, whether it is bilateral or multilateral, we must have a focus on the result. We must see tangible change in education, in health, in youth empowerment, amongst other thematic areas. Then the last one is to say that how inclusive are these partnerships? Partnerships must be inclusive. The government and development in general is now very high on the whole of society approach, which is to say, let's include everyone. So these monitoring rounds have happened since they've started since 2014, and Zimbabwe participated in the 2016-2018, and now it is participating in the 2020 to 2026 round. And as part of these rounds, there are different actors that participate. There is a lot of data that is generated. So allow me to just try to look at maybe the importance of this particular process in terms of civic space. So the process, it brings together principally the government, development partners, and civil society organizations in the context of mutuality, where we are all saying that we are all complementing each other in the work that we're doing to ensure that we realize certain development outcomes. So on the basis of that recognition, civil society in this context is not seen as a regime change agenda. I'm sure Ernest can also speak more to that, given some of the back and forth engagement that we've had with the government in trying to put the process that we're going to be sharing. So the partnership, the global partnership framework, it measures about 4 key things, which I think are very important to us as civil society. The first one is around all of society, where we are saying to what extent are subnational governments, parliaments, civil society organizations, private sector, foundations, and trade unions included in the development process. We had in the morning very strong conversations around social justice and equality. The second one is around state and use of country systems, to say that what is the state of countries' core systems for development cooperation and how development partners align and use them. I'm sure, borrowing from the former president of Zimbabwe, you would understand how he was high on the concept of sovereignty. Each country is sovereign, so in a way, whatever development cooperation assistance the country receives, it must be able to use or gradually adapt to using its own country systems to receive, to retain, to expend, and then also report on that particular tranche of money. Then the second one is transparency, where we are saying what actions are partner countries and development partners taking to make development cooperation transparency. And this is not just a conversation about the government, the development partners, or civil society, but the whole spectrum of actors. Then the last one is leaving no one behind, where we are saying how is everyone consulted and targeted in development cooperation, and is disaggregated data available to monitor progress. For instance, if we look at the flows of development cooperation assistance to Zimbabwe, can we see the kind of support that went to young people in Zimbabwe, to women in Zimbabwe, to persons with disability, amongst other thematic areas? So within the monitoring round, of particular interest to civil society is what is called the CSO Enabling Environment Indicator 2. So the GPEDC has developed a lot of indicators, but for civil society, our interest is Indicator 2, which focuses on enabling environment. This indicator, it collects data that is based on 4 key areas that I'll explain, and then later on I'll also explain how this data is then used at the country level. So the indicator, it collects data and measures CSO enabling environment across 4 key areas. The first one is CSO enabling environment and development effectiveness, where we are saying, is there space for CSOs to dialogue or to be involved in national development processes? Can CSOs access information? And when we influence processes, do the decisions that we give to the government or to some of these processes actually translate or impact how some of those decision-making processes are made? The second one is on CSO development effectiveness, looking at transparency and accountability, where we are trying to look at, from the different strands of support that we receive as civil society, how transparent and accountable are we? Do we have those mechanisms as a sector? Then the third one is around development cooperation with civil society organizations, where we are saying the kind of partnership between your donor and yourself as an organization, or between your NGO and your partner. What kind of cooperation exists? Is it mutual? Is it one way? Is it two-way? Then the last one, it looks at the legal and regulatory environment, where we are looking at CSO financing, the freedoms to association, assembly, and expression, to say that can we fully exercise some of these rights within our own country context. And I'm sure for those that can relate with the presentations that were made since morning, you'd also see the importance of this particular instrument in terms of trying to collect data from civil society organizations and also provide an objective view in terms of the key issues and the context that we're currently in as a country. So as Mr. Ernest has alluded to, the government of Zimbabwe launched this particular process sometime in May, and I will try to explain some of the key phases of the roadmap that the government has created for this monitoring round. So this year, from January to May, we were in the inception phase where the government was selecting the focal points. As Mr. Ernest has spoken, we have got focal points from civil society, from philanthropy, from business, from trade unions, amongst other sectors and actors that are critical for this monitoring process. Also, within the inception phase, there was a bit of feedback and engagement between the focal points and the Minister of Finance. And this is also where the launch meeting was done by the Minister of Finance. Following the inception phase, the government moved into the data collection phase, which is running between June and November. So one thing about this particular process, for those of you that have got internet connectivity, you can just Google the Global Partnership for Effective Development Cooperation. If you click where it says the fourth monitoring round, you can actually see at the bottom, because of the alphabetical order, there is Zimbabwe. And it actually says that Zimbabwe is currently in the process of collecting data and reviewing data. That's how open and transparent and also objective this particular process is. So we're in the data collection phase, which is from June to November. Then following this phase, we move on to the data review and submission. This is now December to February. December 2024 to February 2025. Then the next important phase, which I think is very important for us as civil society, is the dissemination of results and translation to action. This is March 2025 to June 2025, where the development partners, civil society organizations, and the government, they will utilize the country briefs or the country results briefs that will be developed out from this process to hold what are going to be called dissemination workshops, to give each of us an overview of the results that will emerge from this monitoring process. A key element or result that will emerge is a true reflection of the state of CSO enabling environment. And this opportunity will create immense room for dialogue and engagement with the government and development partners, and also as civil society organizations, based on the principle of mutuality, given the complementary roles that we all play in development. Then the last phase is going to be from July 2025 to the next round that is going to end in 2026, November and December. And in between, there is going to be what are going to be called action dialogues, or a lot of actions at the national level to try and work around the problematic issues or the contentious issues which this particular monitoring round will identify. Then I'm sure you're all wondering why we should participate as civil society. Principally, the process provides data and evidence to empower decision makers in managing development cooperation. I'm sure the story of civil society is never really told in the manner in which it should. It's like the hunter is always glorified, but the lion never gets to tell, its story. So through this process, civil society can actually bring to the fore data and evidence that can even empower beyond government different actors in development to make decisions. It also strengthens country-level processes, accountability and learning, and action amongst all actors. I'm sure in the morning we could relate with the kind of silos that development actors are working in, the government, civil society, but this process tries to bring everyone to work together. It also builds the capacity to monitor and develop effectiveness in country, to say that the resources that we are all receiving, the resources that we are giving, the resources that we are utilizing, they all must contribute to tangible results that we can all see around issues of development cooperation. Then it also helps to guide development partners' actions in line with country systems and priorities. I'm sure for those of us that are development partners, even civil society, one of the biggest buzzwords is to say, what are you doing along or that is aligned to the National Development Strategy NDS1? That is also the thrust of this process, to ensure that we run and we support the country development priorities. Lastly and most importantly, it generates behavior change for stronger development impact through inclusive follow-up and country-level dialogue, learning, and joint action. I'm sure the current state of affairs in Zimbabwe, it speaks of a broken relationship between civil society, between the government, and in certain ways even within the development partners. But this process helps all of us to come together, to find each other, and also to begin to collaborate. Then in terms of who participates in the monitoring exercise, the first and critical partner there is the partner country, and in this case, this is the government of Zimbabwe. The government of Zimbabwe is led by a person that is called the National Coordinator, which is appointed by the government, and in principle, the National Coordinator then creates a roadmap, which I have just also shared with you previously. Then the second key actor are also international development partners. These are very important in the context of financing the process, in the context also of promoting accountability, and also in the important role that they also play in terms of monitoring, to say that where are some of those development commitments going towards that were contributing towards the development priorities of Zimbabwe. Then the last actors are what are considered the other stakeholders. These include the civil society organizations, private sector organizations, local governments, and other local actors. Then following the launch of the fourth monitoring round, working in collaboration with NGO, we've been able to undertake some work. We've been able to undertake some CSO consultations at the provincial level based on the 4 areas of the matrix that I've just shared with you. And I'm sure I could also see a few faces that participated in that data collection exercise. These provincial level meetings were very much focused at the community-based organizations, CBO level, because one of the key things of this process is to try to ensure that the most salient voices can actually be picked up and they can contribute in terms of these perspectives. So we've been able to do consultations in Midlands, in Bulawayo, Masvingo, and also and then apart from this consultation, we are also in the process of trying to create a dissemination and engagement plan for the fourth monitoring round that will also provide an opportunity from 2024 to 2026 for civil society organizations to have a structured engagement plan with the government around issues of CSO enabling environment and also around the 4 effectiveness principles. Then in terms of what we can look forward from the process, we are currently trying to tie the collection of the data. We still have 2 key meetings that are coming up for Manicaland province and also for Harare metropolitan province. After that, we are going to submit the data to what is called the Joint Support Team, the JST, and we are going to do this in a very objective and transparent manner. The data that we are going to share will not be accessed by the government or any other actor that is currently participating. Following the process, there's going to be dissemination of country briefs. I'm sure through NGO Secretariat, we can share with you some of the country briefs that have been produced through this process so that you can also appreciate the value add of the process in terms of fostering engagement, dialogue, and also an improved CSO enabling environment. Then the second one, it's also dialogue at the national level that will also be focused on CSO enabling environment. I'm sure most of us, when we heard that the bill was passed this morning, a bit of us were shocked. A few actually, made some audible reactions. And beyond that, you might find that there might not be so many platforms on which to leverage on. This fourth monitoring round will provide a platform until 2026 to leverage on that. Then there's also going to be a lot of peer learning and knowledge exchange between the government, civil society organizations, and also development partners in the context of development cooperation, driving the principles, and also ensuring that we can have the behavior change that is needed at the country level that allows the different actors to work on the basis of mutuality, on the basis of according humanity the rights and guarantees that it must be coded and given. So thank you very much. Over to you, Mr. Ernest.
A round of applause for MacDonald. Oh, sorry, can you switch off? Let me hit. Thank you very much, MacDonald, for the presentation. I know it was a big task for you to summarize the process in just 20 or so minutes. But I think you all agree with me that he tried his best to just give us some most important nuggets around the GPEDC process and how we can leverage on this platform. So I think ND will help me with just a planner session for the next 12 minutes or so. But just to say, this important is this platform is very key for us, especially as it presents a neutral ground for engagement. Oftentimes when we engage, sometimes, because of the mutual suspicion that we have been talking about since morning, the temperatures are high, there is tension already, and for us to really engage objectively, sometimes it's very difficult. So this kind of processes, I can also relate this process to the debt resolution and arrears clearance platform, where oftentimes you engage with government and other partners. We tend to be more objective because it's a process that we are all taking serious about, and there is not any elements of suspicion. And as we are even making our contribution and inputs, they are taken seriously because the platform is regarded as a neutral platform that we can all leverage on.